Hello, let's do the New York Times Hard Sudoku for April 4th, 2024. There's a link in the description if you'd like to try the puzzle yourself, and I'm going to get started right now. So I got a question from a relatively new viewer on how to improve your scanning. I think that this is a very individual question, but what I can do is go over how I scan, and it really just comes down to ultimately practice because you need to train your brain to recognize the patterns. But I will say that there are good habits and bad habits, and I can tell you what I'm scanning for and how I'm approaching that. So I'm going to go over kind of a systematic way that you can do scanning, and I'm going to go over that carefully. I'll probably go over things one or two times, and then you can just assume that's what I'm continuing to do. But also, you don't have to do it this systematically, but I think if you do start systematically, that'll give you a good idea of how to then continue improving your scanning from there. It serves as a good baseline. People who are very fast are not doing this as systematically. They've actually trained their brains to just immediately pick out the most important things to scan. But I like to do this systematic approach because I feel like it's an approach that can give an immediate improvement to people who are newer to Sudoku and trying to just learn how to solve like these puzzles in general, or how to improve their times. If their times are like 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, this can definitely improve your times. And then once you're happy and satisfied and used to this, then you can move on. So sorry for that long intro, but I wanted to explain kind of what my focus is today, and it probably will be a longer video as a result. So my general approach to scanning is, first of all, let's talk about some terms. This is a box, right? And this is a row. A row of boxes is called a band. Okay, that's just the term I use. It's a fairly common term to use. It's not the only term to use, though. This is a box, and this is a column. A column of boxes is called a stack. You can kind of see it's like 3 boxes stacked. So we have our bands and we have our stacks. Now, whenever I talk about bands or stacks, rows or columns, of course, you can always rotate the puzzle 90 degrees, and now you've swapped them, right? So it's less important that it's a band versus stack. What's important is that I just sort of use a systematic way of going through it. So I always do the first band, then the second band, then the third band. And I look for 3 things in general while I'm scanning those bands. And that can take me 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. It depends on how much I get distracted and how much I find. And then I'll go through the 3 stacks. And I'm really just, because a lot of the stuff I'm looking for when I go over the bands is box centric. I generally will I'll do a quick glance to make sure I didn't miss anything, but generally the stacks go much faster because I'm really only looking for one thing there. And then after that, then that's kind of when my initial scanning phase is over. And I won't go over the rest as carefully in this video. But generally after that, then you got to kind of be jumping around the grid, looking for restricted cells, seeing if you missed anything, looking at your corner marks, making sure you respected them, all that stuff. Okay. So let's start with this first band. I'm going to go over it carefully. The first thing I look for is when there are 2 of the same digit in the band. Not 1, not 3. 3 isn't that interesting because that means the digit's done in the band already. 1 isn't as interesting because it can't interact on its own. Usually, sometimes it can. But 2 is the magic number. And so how do you scan for whether there's 2? Some people might say, look at the band and see which ones have 2. But those are people who have trained their brain already to look for that, right? Like I can look at this and I can immediately see, okay, I think it's just the 4s. But if you want to train that, you can go do it in a systematic way, and it doesn't take very long. Start in box 1, because let's talk about this. If we're comparing 3 items to see if any of the 3 items are the same, you only have to compare 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and 2 and 3. That's 3 comparisons. You don't need to do 3 back to 1, right? You don't need to do 2 back to 1, right? If they're invertible. So I start with the box that has the fewest number of givens, say this 9 here, right? And all we then have to do is look to see if either box has a 9. They don't, right? That's very fast. Then I just take of the 2 boxes that are remaining that I haven't compared against yet. I just need to compare them against each other. Again, pick the one with the fewest givens. Is there a 3? Is there a 4? Yes. Is there a 6? No. So 4 is literally only the only repeat in this band. Once we have that repeat, we see how that affects the box they aren't in. So this 4 looks in, this 4 looks in, and then we scan down and we see if we see any other 4s in these 2 boxes. We have this 4 here. So now what I can do is I can just corner mark the 4s there. I'm always going to end up corner marking it, even if it's 3. Some people will say only mark it if it's 2. That's completely a personal decision. Maybe try both, see which one you like better. They both have consequences. Okay, so that's the only repeat, but what else am I going to look for? The second thing that I look for are what I call crossings. So this is where you're going to go box by box, and you're going to compare the givens within the box to each other. And you're going to find any 2 givens that share a row or a column. In this case, this 1, 4 shares a row. So I'm going to make that green because that's kind of what my focus is on. This 1 and 4, they share a row with each other. Now, the key thing here is because they share a row, that means they occupy 2 columns. In this case, column 1 and column 2. They do not occupy column 3. So column 3 is going to be my focus. And I don't care about what exists in the same box. So in these 2 boxes, I'm looking at column 3. And I also don't care about empty cells. So really, I'm just looking at the 1 and the 9. And then what I'm doing, because the green cells share a row, there's going to be 2 rows. I'll make that blue. There's going to be the blue rows. The blue rows are the rows that they aren't in, right? We don't care about the row that they are in. And then what I'm going to do is, again, I don't care about empty cells. And I'm going to look at the purple cells here, and I'm going to see if any of them are repeated in the blue cells. In this case, they are not. So we didn't find anything, right? And we're going to do that, and you can train your brain to do that very quickly, just at a glance. I'm going to do that for every pair of givens that share a row or a column. So these don't, right? But these do. And again, you can use your brain's pattern matching to find this quickly. So again, let's just go over this again slowly. The 2 green cells, they share a column, which means that there is 1 row they don't occupy. So we're going to focus on that row. That's our purple. And again, it's only the 3. Technically, the 4 also counts. So we can think about the 4 too, because the 4s are pointing, right? But we already have a 4 in the box, so we don't care about that. And again, the other thing we can do, besides just only looking at the givens, we also only want to look givens that aren't already in the box. So the 3 is the only candidate here. Then we're going to look at the 2 columns, make that blue, and just see if there's another 3 present in those columns. There is not. So again, the reason you want to be able to be very quick at scanning this at a glance is because most of the time you'll find nothing. But when you do find something, it's extremely useful. So now there aren't any other pairs in this box that share a row or column. So we can move on to the next box. And I always start with the box with the most givens, because that's the most likely to have something happening. Okay, we have this 3, 4, and 6. So the 3 and the 4, they share a column. So there is 1 row. So I'm going to just say this 1 and this 9 are my interesting purple numbers. Then I'm going to look at these 2 columns. And I'm going to say, okay, well, there's no 1, but there is a 9. So 9 is my interesting digit there. So I have now look at what happens. As soon as you find this, you know you've struck gold. Because this 9 looks in here. Taking those out, I'm going to make those purple. This blue 9 looks up. Let's make that blue. And you can see that they cross each other. And they eliminate 5 cells from being 9. There are 9 total cells. And the 2 green ones, by definition of how we found this, are not covered by the purple or the blue, and are also not 9, because we only focused on digits that weren't already in the box. So that's 2 more cells that cannot be 9. So we are down to just 2 cells that can be 9. So this 9 looks in, this 9 looks in, these aren't 9, is usually what I'll just say when I'm going through this, and that'll put a 9 in one of these 2 cells. Now, always follow up on that when you find it this way, because that is going to cause what's called pointing. You may have actually placed the digit. Like if one of these was occupied by a given, we would have actually placed a 9. Or if there happened to be another 9 around here, that would have placed the 9 as well. But even if you don't place it, it's going to be down to 2 maximum cells, and those 2 cells are going to share a column or row. You can always swap that, right, depending on how you found this. And so those are going to point, because in this box, we have limited the 9 to 2 cells, and both of those cells are in this column, column 4. And so column 4, just like all columns, only gets a single 9. And its 9 is going to be one of these 2, which means that the rest of the column can't be 9. The important thing here is that these cells can't be 9. We already had a 9 in this box, right? This box doesn't have a 9, but now these cells can't be 9, and we already have this 9 here looking down. Unfortunately, this 9 doesn't do much, but it does mean 9's in one of these two. So the important bit here, I mean, this 9 won't always be there, right? The important bit here is remembering that these two are no longer 9, and that can affect this box in really positive ways. Okay, and now we just keep scanning. We have this 6, 4. What are the two digits of interest? They are the 7 and the 8. Look, we have another one. We have the 7. So let's do it. Let's do the coloring again. We have the 6, 4 here. The 7 and 8 were of interest. We can make those purple. Now we want to look up here, not this one, right? The two rows that the green isn't in. We want to look for 7s and 8s, and we found a 7. So that's our blue 7, right? And so our purple 7 looks in, our blue 7 looks in. Again, the 6, 4, by the way we found it, are occupying 2 of the remaining open spots in the same row, and therefore the 7's in one of those two. And now this is where I noticed we also had a 7 here. That wasn't a column I was paying attention to, so you'll actually see this happen to me a lot, where I'll miss that because I haven't done the vertical scan yet. But that doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter how you find this, but what matters is that we actually ended up with another 7 there. That means that we can place the 7 in this box. It's the only place left in the box. We could have seen that by doing a vertical scan, having those scan up, having this 7 look in, and then noticing that. And we would have seen that eventually, but because we're using a systematic form of scanning, sometimes you just find it in a weird way. But what matters is that we found it. And now we, of course, always want to follow up on that. So the 7 looks right. This 7 looks right. We now have, basically, we've gone back and said, well, now I have a repeated 7, right? So I want to see what the consequence is. Well, I'm going to corner mark the 7s down here. There aren't any under here to affect that. Okay. So now we've done all the pairs in this box. This box doesn't have any pairs. So that is the second thing I'm looking for as I'm scanning the band. Now, the third thing I look for as I scan the band is what I call geometry. This is the rarest thing to find, but also the most fruitful if you do find it. It can often just completely crack the puzzle open because it's one of those techniques that it's going to assume is difficult. And because the computer that evaluated this puzzle considered that to be a difficult technique, it's okay with that being the only thing stopping the puzzle from being singles. So sometimes that or a very small number of things can completely crack open the puzzle if you find it. So what do I mean by geometry? We're going to be looking at groups of 3 givens in a box or more that all avoid a row or column. So in this case, let's look at these 3. I'll make those green. Those 3 givens all avoid this row here, which I'll make purple. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, where do those digits go in purple? Where do the green digits go in purple? Because purple needs all digits, which means it's going to have the 3 greens. And we know that those aren't going to go in the same box that green is already in, right? We can't put another 1, 4, 7 in the same box, so they're not here. So we're going to think about where can the 1, 4, 7 go in this row? Well, we already found the 4, so we're going to start ignoring the 4 and go, okay, now where do 1 and 7 go in this row? Now we already know where 7 goes. It's over here. We already have that marked, so we're not worried about that. So really now we're down to just the 1, and I think about where the 1 can go, and it can go in any of these 4 spots. So that's a bust, right? And we're going to scan that very quickly for every set of at least 3 givens. If I'm desperate, I'll even go down to 2. That's probably a later phase. And just ask where they go. So here I'm going to ask, where do 4, 7, and 8 go in this column? Well, we already have 7 and 8. Might as well think about 4 for a second. It can go anywhere. Okay, another bust, right? I might even think about this 7, 8 real quick, just because they avoid this row. And they avoid this column. There's already in this column. 7's already in this row. Let's think about 8. And I do see this 8 here, but unfortunately 8 can go in these 3. So sometimes you can end up finding that you can claim a row. Like if there was an 8 down, let's say there was an 8 placed exactly here. I'll just pretend, make sure to undo that, because it may not be an 8. We're not guessing here. Then I would see, oh, this 8's not here. This 8 sees here. This 8 sees here. Therefore 8's in one of these 2. And then I can follow up by looking at where 8 can go in here. Okay, so nothing from that, nothing from this box. I don't think there's any other sets of 3 digits that avoid a row or column. Well, the 1, 4, 8 does. So we can look at the 4 and the 8 in this column. Okay, so you can see the 8's actually pretty close, right? The 8's not in these 3. And then it's because we have this, actually, we have these 8's, right? So at this point, I may notice that I didn't vertically scan this, and we have these 2 8's. And that actually just places the 8 in this box. Now, I always want to follow up on newly placed digits. I'm more prioritized if they place them in a band that I'm currently scanning or already scanned, but it doesn't hurt to just quickly follow up on it, even if you haven't scanned that band yet, because now we can just place this 8, and then we can follow up on these 8's, and we can mark 8s in one of these two. And then because I just got a bunch of 8s, it doesn't hurt to just double click them and be like, okay, I have a ton of 8s in this puzzle already. Is there something I've missed? So we can have 8s here, and then like how are 8s affected in this box? 8s are in one of these, and now we just know, okay, 8s are remaining here, and that's it. And something else is going to have to resolve that. Now we go back and remember what we were doing. We were doing the 4 and the 8, the 1, 4, 8 compared to this column. Now the 4 is interesting, right? Because this got occupied by an 8. So the 4 is not in these three, and this 4 says not here. So 4 ends up in one of these two cells. And so now what we want to ask is, where does 4 go in this column? Because these 4s claim this cell. We can also see it through this box because this column is full. But let's do claiming, because it doesn't matter how you see it. What matters is that you understand it. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, even if they end up seeing the same thing as you would have seen in some other way, whatever you see first, that's going to be the fastest way to approach the puzzle because it's what you saw first. There's no reason to wait to see it in a different way, right? You can also confirm, oh yeah, that makes sense because I could have seen it this way. And that can help reinforce that your logic's correct. But anyway, let's go over claiming. We found that in column 3, the 4 was only in two cells. And those two cells both happen to be in box 4. Box 4 needs 1, 4 and can only have 1, 4. And that's going to be one of these two cells. Therefore, because of this column, right? This column needs a 4. It's going to be one of these two cells. No matter which one it ends up in, it's going to be in box 4. Therefore, this cell can't be 4. And you can kind of think about it the other way if you want. If this cell were 4, where would I put 4 in this column? And the answer is I would not be able to. The puzzle's broken. So this is not a 4, and this 4 sees these. So 4 in this column is one of these two. We could have also seen this 4 looking down into this box. These aren't 4. 4 is one of these two. It's this similar logic, right? These logics are very, very related to each other. And like I said, there's multiple ways to see it. Now, we want to just think about this 4. Whenever you quarter mark a digit into 2 of 3 columns or rows, in this case columns, they only occupy 2 columns. It's always good to scan to the right and see, is 4 also limited to those 2 columns in these boxes? Can it be up here in both of these boxes? And in this case, it can be. But that's another thing that I'm scanning for whenever I place something like that as a corner mark or a pair. Okay, so we have covered the 1, 4, 8 here. We got an 8 out of it. We got these 4s out of it. We also cascaded this 8 to here, and we marked up these 8s, right? So it looks like I'm going all over the puzzle, but really I'm still focused on box 1 here, right? I haven't even left box 1 in terms of this third part of scanning this band. So I'm technically not even done with this band yet, right? I still need to look at this box. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is notice that 3, 4, 6, 7, that's 4 digits that all avoid this column. Now, unfortunately, the 7 is already placed. So we want to think about 3, 4, and 6 and where it goes in these 4 cells. And what we're hoping to find is that one of these cells happens to not be 3, 4, and 6. Unfortunately, we don't see anything like that. We're also going to look at 3, 4, and 6 individually. And I'm scanning around and I'm not seeing anything except this 4 here. So the only thing we learned is that 4 is in one of these 3 cells. So unfortunately, we didn't find anything. I'm also looking at these 3 and how they avoid this row. You're basically just going to go through all the pairs or triples of givens and just see how they avoid rows, columns, and whether that's interesting. So again, the 4 is not as interesting. I'm already less hopeful, right, now that it's not all 3. They need to go here somewhere. The 3 and the 6 need to go here somewhere. But unfortunately, there's nothing looking in to tell us more to do with that, other than this 4, right? But this 4 is not super helpful because the 4 is already in the column, right? It's the 3 and the 6 that we're looking for, but there's nothing. Okay. Anything else of note to look for? We already looked at this in this row. How about this column? 3, 4, and 6 in this column. I think we already looked at that. So, all right, and obviously this 9. We can look at the effect of this 9. Like, actually, this is kind of nice, right? This 9 isn't in this row, and it's also not in this column, and we can think about the consequence. For this row, we already see from the corner mark that this can be 9. We have this 9 here, but that means 9's in one of these 2 cells, so that's not helpful right now. Always good to kind of try to remember that, but we don't have a good marking for it, and I think it would be too cluttered if we did. But in this column, you can see that this 2, 5, 4 aren't 9, right? This 8's not 9, so 9 ends up in one of these 2. And again, that's going to claim the box. So these aren't 9. This 9 looks down. Sorry, this 9 looks at these. And so in this column, 9 can only be in one of these two. But we could also see in this box, we have this 9 looking down, this 9 looking in. Notice that is a crossing on this 5-2. We just found it in a different way. Had we scanned this 5-2 and looked for crossings, we would have found the 9. That would have made pointing 9s here. That would point down. This 9 would look down. We'd get the corner mark 9s here. Now, I am noticing that these 9s line up like I was talking about. So we want to look at the other box at where, or we want to look at this row at where 9 can go. But there's already a 9, right? So it's not interesting. It could have been, though, because these were occupied by givens. So if there wasn't a 9 already placed in this box, we would have known it was somewhere in these 3. All right. And again, that's 20 minutes into the puzzle already, right? Why is this fast? Well, I can do this very quickly, right? It's systematic, and I'm sitting here explaining it all, but you can really just flick your eyes around and find this stuff very quickly, and that's going to give you progress on the puzzle like as you go. So now I think I'm done with this band, so I'm going to move on to the next band. First thing I look for, repeated digits. What box am I going to start in? The one that has the fewest, right? So we do have a 7 and an 8, so let's take care of both of those. We already have the 8 marked. These two 7s look in. We can mark the 7. Now I know that this box is not going to be involved in any more pairs of digits, so I compare these two. They both have 4 in them, so it doesn't matter, but I'm going to think about 2, 5, 7, 9. Okay, we have a repeated 5. Those 5s look in. This 5 looks up. 5's in one of those two. I have now finished the first phase of that scan, and I know that I'm done. I don't need to like keep looking, except there are these 2s. So I'm not perfect. But yeah, we had the 5s and the 2s, but the 7 and 9 don't have a repeat over here. Now you always want to look to see if you had stuff up here that you already marked or down here that you already marked that might line up. I don't really see anything. So the next thing we look for are crossings, right? I'm going to start with this 7, 8. This 2 would be our only candidate. There's no 2s up here, down here, so we move on. This 9, 5, right? We already have the 8 marked, but that is a crossing. Are there any other crossings? So there's not anything else in this column, so no. How about this 5, 2? It would only be the 2. There's no 2s down here or up here, so no good. Also, 2's already in the box, so never mind. So there's no candidates. Okay, I'm not seeing any other pairs of digits that share a row or column. Like these ones are in a different row and a different column from each other, so that's no good. I mean, you can look, right? You can look at the 5, 7, 8 here. So the 8 would be the only interesting thing, and it doesn't really tell you much, right? So, and then we got this. Now, this being full, the first thing I want to look for is anything around here that isn't already placed in the box. At this point, we would have found the 9 if we hadn't already found it, right? This pointing 9 here, but we don't get anything else. This 4, 5 does avoid this row, so we could potentially look at the 7, but we already got 7s cornered in here. We know where they go in the box. That story is not going to change. And then we've got the 2 and the 5, right? So the 9 would be the only interesting thing. We already got it, right? You're going to get a lot of repeated finds, basically. This 5, 8, the 2 would be of interest, but there's already 2 in the box. Right, and I think that's it. Maybe the 4, 2. We already have the 7, right? You can kind of use your instinct for when you think you're done. Sometimes I do miss something just because I try to use my instinct to speed things up. And now, of course, we're going to look for geometry. So this 7, 8 in a row or a column or this column. We don't have these 7s marked because I hadn't scanned vertically yet. So we can mark these 7s now. That's when I noticed it because I was seeing 7 and I noticed the repeat. We also have these repeated 1s. You know, if I notice something, I might as well mark it even if it's out of order, right? Now, here's something that I'm immediately noticing. Is I've got 1, 2, 4, and 5 corner marked in this box. I've got a lot of corner marks in this box, and they all avoid this one cell. So if you notice that happen, it doesn't hurt to just take a look at that cell and see what's going on there, right? So you can do a little count in your head. 1, 2, 4, 5 is 4 digits. 7, 8, that's a total of 6 digits. This has to be down to at most 3 candidates because it's not any of these 6 that we have marked around here. So then we think about what those candidates are. Well, they're not 1, 2, could be 3, 4. It's not 5, could be 6, not 7, 8. Did I miscount? 1, 2, 4, 5. Oh, it's not a 4. The important thing is that we actually had these cornered 4s. That's why we do the count in our head first. Because I would have mismarked this with a 4 in it. And the 4 is already cornered here and here, telling us that that can't be 4. Okay. So it's down to 369. I quickly do a scan to see if 369 is interesting. We don't really have any other center marks right now, so it's not. But I think it was worth marking. Anything 3 or fewer is worth marking. The other thing we're on the lookout for as we go is rows, columns, boxes with 4 open cells. Anytime that happens and we notice it, I usually just jump and look at it because it can really speed things up. But I'm not going to do that until the next step, because if we're technically going through this in a systematic way, I don't want to add that step and get distracted. And so I'm going to go through this systematically first, but in my own solves, even on the video, I have been starting to incorporate more things that I look for as I go through. But I'm not going to do that in this instructive video. Okay. So that 7, 8 was a bust. We've got 2, 5, and 9. I'm noticing that we have these 2 5s look up, so we might as well mark the 5s. I'm taking care of each digit one at a time, right? I'm looking to see if there's any consequences to the 2, to the 5, because I already saw that there were way too many open cells for 2, 5, 9 to just squeeze in there. I am noticing this can't be 2, 9, right? So I'm a little bit interested in 2, 9, but also then suddenly not, because there's a bunch left, right? Okay, so 2, 5, 9 was a bust. We've got 9 and 7 in this column. 7's already in the column. We can think about 9, and we already have it marked. Okay, so it's not interesting. Not any more interesting than it already had been. We also have 2, 5, 9 for this row. We need the 5 and the 9, but again, not much going on there, right? Most of the time, it's going to be a bust. I don't even know if this puzzle has it in it as a useful thing, but it does let you pay attention to the digits you've got and make sure you didn't miss anything, right? I've got these 2 2s looking up. We can mark 2s here. I am noticing these 2 cells avoiding a bunch of corner marks. We've got 2, 4, 7, 8. That's 4. So we have 5 digits there. We would need these cells to see 2 digits that weren't corner marks for it to be interesting. They both see the 5, which is already interesting. And then this one sees the 3, which isn't corner marked. So this one's worth marking. And this one does see the 1, so it's worth marking. So both of these are worth marking. For the box, and besides the 5, we can ignore the 5 for both of them. But for the box, we need 1. We have the 2. We do need 3. We have the 4. Can't be 5. We need 6. We have 7. We need 8. We have the 9. And then the 3 and the 8 clean up. Oh, sorry, both of them can't be 8. Right, we had the 8 corner marked. I didn't notice that. Did I miss a digit? Because I thought these would be down to 3. 1, 2, 3. This is why we double check when our counts don't match up. 4, 5. It's because we had the 5 and the 8. No, the 8 was already corner marked. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What was wrong with my count? We had 2, 4, 7, 8, 9. That's 5 digits. Plus the 5 is a third digit. Ah, yeah, okay. The 5 is what did it. To bring it down to 3, and then each see 1 and 3. Okay, so that was actually a correct scan. I just was confused. Okay, so these are down to by values. Definitely worth marking. They don't do anything yet, but they might later. And so now we just have to remember what we were doing. We were looking at this box. So of course, I'm looking for anything that passes through here. There's nothing there. We're looking at 2, 4, 5, 8 in this column. It already has a 2, which is unfortunate. 4, 5, and 8. I am noticing 5 isn't in either of these cells. And 5's not here. So actually, 5 in this column is limited to up here, which means these can't be 5 because the 5 is claimed in the box. These already couldn't be 5, but these can't be 5, which is actually interesting. This 5 takes it out of these. This 5 takes it out of these 2. So actually what we've seen is that these 2 5s, had we scanned them, would have placed the 5 here. I found it in a very circuitous way, but it's because of my systematic method of looking at all of this stuff before I move on. So we got this 5 here. And that does tell us exactly what we already knew, that the 5 is up here. Okay. So anything else of note to look at? We have 4, 5, and 8. We already looked at that, I think. I'm kind of interested in 4. Actually, I'm very interested in 4 in this row. So and this is how I found it, right? Because I was looking at 4, 5, 8 in this row. We need 4, 5, and 8 somewhere in here. It's not here. As this is down to 3, 6, 9. And so then I was looking at 4s. I see this 4 here and this 4 here. Wait, did I misscan this maybe? Well, this can't be 4 and this can't be 4. I thought for some reason I had found a single 4, but that's why we double check. So 4 is in one of these 2 cells, and then 8 unfortunately is one of these 3, so we can't do anything with that. 5, though, is in one of these two. We have that marked. Okay, never mind. I didn't find anything. Thought it might be more interesting than it was. Excuse me. I've already gone through a cough drop. But this is a half-an-hour video already. Hopefully it's helpful for you. We'll do this last band. So again, we're going to look for repeats. I'm going to start here, 2, 8, and 5. So the 8s are done, not interesting. The 2s don't have a buddy. The 5 has a buddy, but it's all 3 of them. So then we just got to compare these two together. 5, 7, 8. We know the 8s are already done. 5s we already got, they're done. 7s, there's no repeat over here. We already have them marked in the box too. Okay, so nothing to find there. Then what we look for are crossings. So for example, this 5 and this 1. We already have the 4 marked, but there's already an 8 in the box. We've got the 1, 9. 5 is already in the box. We've got the 1, 8. 5's in the box. 2 has no buddy up here. 8's in the box. 7 is already marked, right? Just going through these quickly. Then the 8, 9, nothing, right? Nothing of candidate. Just the 8 is already in the box. Over here, there's nothing to look at for crossings. And then here, we would just need something. This is full, right? So we're just looking at these 2 rows to see if there's anything not already in the box. The 1 is the only thing I missed, right? So 1 ends up down here. And because 1 ends up down there, in this row that they point, making these not 1, this 1 looks in. 1 ends up in one of these 2 cells. Okay, and now we look for geometry. We've got the 1, 5, 8, 9. This column already has 8, but 1, 5, 9 might be of interest. We look here. We already have the 1 marked. The 5, I looked quickly to see if this couldn't be 5. If it couldn't be, we would have been able to place it, but unfortunately we can't. And then, sorry, it was the 9 as well in these columns. This can't be 9, but otherwise not interesting. Okay. I've also got 1, 5, 9 for this row. We already have the 1s and 9s marked. It's not going to be interesting. 8 and 9, we already have the 9s, kind of limited there. So yeah, nothing to find there. We might look at 5, 7. We have the 5 marked. You're going to notice that this is already mostly done, right? I already kind of covered a lot of this as I went. And then here, the 2 and the 5, not super interesting. 8 and 2, not super interesting. It's already kind of marked up. All right. So now the last little bit of scanning is just a little bit of cleanup to make sure I didn't miss anything vertically. So really, I'm only looking for repeated digits at this point because crossings I already looked for. Geometry I already looked for. You can double check the boxes if you want, but it's the same boxes and the same logic. So we're going to kind of trust ourselves that we already found it to an extent. We're looking for repeats. Going to start with this 8, 7 against the other 2 boxes. We already have the 7s marked. 8s are done in the stack. And then we can just look at this 1, 5, 8, 9, see if anything repeats there. The 1s are the repeats. We already have that marked. Okay, now we look at this stack. We're going to look at 5, 7, 8 against the other 2. The 5s we have marked already. 7 is done. 8 doesn't have a buddy. And then we're just going to compare these two to each other. So maybe 3, 4, 6, 7. The 7 is the only repeat, but it's in all 3. Okay, and then we're just going to look at this band real quick again. Again, this is why this last step is so fast. The 2s repeat. The 5s repeat. We already have that. The 8s repeat. We already have that. And then between these, the 9 has no buddy, right? So, and that's it. That is the first initial pass of scanning. What did I get? I got a ton of corner marks. I found some center marks as I went, and I found these 7, 5, 8. I found this 8. So now we've seeded our grid with the most interesting pieces of logic that we found. And now that that's seeded, what we're going to do is we're going to look for restricted cells. So this is kind of the next phase of scanning. The first phase of scanning was bands and then stacks, and then the next phase is restricted cells that are down to 3 or fewer digits. The first place to look are rows, columns, or boxes with 4 or fewer open cells in them. And I'm just going to scan all the rows to see if I find anything like that. This row, right? This row is down to 4 digits. So whenever a row is down to 4 or fewer open cells, that means every cell is at most 4 candidates. If they say even 1 given that removes a candidate from that, then they're suddenly interesting to mark. So, and we often can find naked singles in there, hidden singles, things like that. So what does this row need? It needs 1, 3, 4, and 6, right? Some people see this differently. All I do is I just count 1 to 9 in my head, and I skip any givens that are already in the row, right? So I counted 1, not 2, 3, 4, not 5, 6, not 7, not 8, not 9, right? So it's 1, 3, 4, 6. So the 1 is so we know these aren't 1. So these are already down to 3, 4, 6, and this one's not 4, right? So we can park 3, 4, 6. That one's not 4. And then these are from 1, 3, 4, 6. This can't be a 6, so it's from 1, 3, 4. And I don't see any of 1, 3, 4, 6 seeing this cell, so it's any of them. So I'm not going to mark it. And now I'm going to look to see if there's any consequences to what I marked up here. And I'm not seeing anything like that they would match up with, or that's interesting. So we got to wait for those to be helpful. No other row has limited to 4. Now I'm going to just quickly look at my columns, any that are limited to 4 or fewer. In more recent solves, I've been finding these as I go. When I scan the banner stack, I just do it. But it's okay to do it in a second pass once you have all the information from the initial phase of scanning. So I've got 1, 6, 8, 9 here. And I'm thinking about 1, 6, 8, 9. Well, first of all, we know these aren't 8, these aren't 9. So these are just going to be worth marking. So I'm just going to mark it up, 1, 6, 8, 9. Now I'm going to clean it up. And I didn't notice at the time, but now we do see that this cell C is 1, 6, and 9. So it is a naked single 8. So we get this 8 here, and these aren't 8. That does eliminate 8, of course, from all 3 of these. It eliminates 8. So we eliminated an 8 corner mark. We can immediately place the 8 here. This can't be 9 because of the 9 in the box. This can't be 1 because of the 1 in the row. And we're going to look at this 1, 6, 9. And the thing that we notice about it, which is already marked actually, is that this is only 1, 6. So the remaining 2 need to have the 9 in them. And we already have that corner marked. But if we didn't, we could corner mark it now. And so now I've got to think about the new things that I got. I got this 8, right? So these 2 8s look in. This 8 looks up. This 8 looks up. Now there's only one place for 8 in the box. And what I'm noticing is that that's removing a 4 and a 5 corner mark. So I want to immediately scan for 4s and 5s in this box. To see, because I corner mark 3, it means I have to rescan to see if was that a 2 or was that a 3. The 4 was a 2, right? The 4 was only in 2 places because I don't see any other 4 corner marks. So I can place the 4 and that displaced a 2. So now I look for the 2. There's only one place for 2. That's the 2. Now there's 2 places for 7 still. So that's no good. And we will roll back and remember the 5. There's 2 places for 5. But now we see that this box is down to 4 digits. So we're going to say, well, let's think about what it needs. Well, it needs the 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. Sorry, it's down to 5. I miscounted. These aren't 6, though. What did I say? 1, 3, 5, 6, 7. So these are from 1, 3, 5, 7. This one's not 5, so this is 1, 3, 7. This one's not 7. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, these aren't worth marking. Okay, so what was I doing? I'm going to kind of backtrack. I was doing this column. Oh yeah, I was following up on the 8s. All our 8s are done, so that's good. I also got this 1, 6 that I want to make sure it doesn't do anything interesting, and I got this 1, 6, 9 down here. All right, so now we're going to look for more rows, columns, boxes. This column is actually down to 4 now, so we're going to think about this one. So it's down to 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this cell can't be 3 or 4, so we already know it's from 1, 2. And I'm going to scan to see if that 1, 2 is interesting. Not at the moment. This one can't be 2, so it's down to 1, 3, 4. This one can't be 1, so it's down to 2, 3, 4. And we're just going to follow up on what we just marked, make sure there's not anything interesting going on. Doesn't look like it. Okay. If I do find something interesting, I'll talk about it. And now this column here is down to 4 digits. So we need 1, 3, 5, 7. This one can't be 1 or 5. So this is down to 3, 7. The important thing is just keeping in your head, in your short-term memory, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, right? And you're going to look to see if any of those match, right? And then go, okay, 1, 3, 7. This one's not 7, 1, 3, 5. It's not a 5 either because this box has the 5. In fact, I miscanned the 4 digits in this column, so we're going to redo that because I just noticed I had 5 in my list. So it's actually 1, 3, 6, 7. This one's not 1, so this is 3, 6, 7. 1, 3, 6, 7, 1, 3, 6, 7, 1, 3, 6, 7. Okay. So not as interesting because I had completely skipped over a digit. Okay, so I don't think there's any other columns with 5 or fewer. Now we can look to see if there's boxes. This box is down to 4 digits. We know it's 1, 2, 5, 9 just because those are the unique. We know it's going to be 4 digits and those are all penciled in here. If you don't use the red markings, you can't trust them as much. Rescan it first. Or just really look at what the 4 are using the counting from 1 to 9. Make sure that your markings are correct before you continue. But this is 1, 2, 5, 9. This one's not 1, so this is from 2, 5, 9. It's not a 9 either, so 2, 5. This can be any of 1, 2, 5, 9. This can't be 2, so this is 1, 5, 9. Again, we're just looking for 3 or fewer digits in each cell. This box is down to 4 digits. And we know it's 1, 3, 4, 6. This can't be the 4, so this is 1, 3, 6. This can be any of 1, 3, 4, 6. Okay. This box is down to 5, but I am seeing the 7 and the 9 corner mark, so I just want to think about it, especially considering this cell here. Oh, we already considered this cell for the column, though. We know it's down to 4 digits. How is that possible? I must have thought it could be something it couldn't be. So, all right, well, let's just think about the box since I was there. We need 1, 3, 6, 7, 9. So this can't be the 7 or the 9. So, right, this is from 1, 3, 6. 1, 3, 6, 7, 9. Okay, not super interesting. This can't be 9 for 2 different reasons, so that's not interesting. Okay, any other boxes of interest? I know almost nothing about this box, which concerns me, so I'm actually just going to think about it to see if I missed anything. So we need 2, 3, 5, 6, 9. 2, 3, 5, 6, 9. So this cell can't be 2 or 9. So this is, oh, and it can't be 6 either. This is down to 3, 5. And I like to double check that because that was a lot of numbers to keep in my head. So it can't be 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. In fact, that means this cell might be limited as well. Let's think about the whole column. Since we're interested in this cell, might as well think about the whole column while we're at it. So the column needs 2, 3, 4, 6, 9. This can't be 6 or 4, or 2. So it's not 2, could be 3, it's not 4, 6, could be 9. So again, I'm going to double check that. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So that's down to 3, 9. I'm scanning that. I'm seeing we have this 3, 6, 9 there. I'm going to stay suspicious of that because all we need is one more 3, 6, 9. We got a triple. This 3, 5, I'm not seeing anything interesting linking up at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at there. The rest of this box, was that interesting? We know these can't be 3. So they could be 2, 5, 6, 9. This one's not 5 either. So this is only 2, 6, 9. Is this whole column interesting? What's this cell? Can be 2, 3, 4, 6. 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah, that's 4 digits. Okay. Okay. We're going to look for more restricted cells. So this cell might be interesting just because it's avoiding our 1 and 9 corner marks here. So I'm going to just take a quick look. I'm just going to scan it individually. So it can't be 1, 2. It could be 3, 4, 6, 7. 3, 4, 6, 7, 9. That's a lot. No, it can't be 9. 3, 4, 6, 7. That's 4 digits, unfortunately. How about this box? Is this box interesting? We need 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. I'm sorry I'm missing what this puzzle needs to actually break in. We'll find it though. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. No. So one of the issues that I have on these longer solves where I'm sitting here explaining every step is my short-term memory is much worse. Solving quickly is kind of exponential in a way because you can utilize your short-term memory a lot more instead of relying on rescanning your marks. You can just remember more easily what you've done when it's been over a shorter period of time. And so I'm already 43 minutes in this puzzle. I don't remember minute 1, right? I've already forgotten. So this puzzle is almost foreign to me at this point. And once you're this far in, it might be a good idea to just take a step back and say, okay, what am I missing about this puzzle? And what have I forgotten about it? Remind yourself what's going on. And as I sat here explaining it, I've already drained more about this puzzle from my head. But anyway, that's kind of this consequence of this format of tutorial. Okay, so I'm gonna be looking at, oh, this row is down to 4. I kind of missed that, or maybe I filled something. I might have just missed it on my first scan around. This is down to 2, 3, 5, 6. This can't be 2, so this is 3, 5, 6. I'm really suspicious of like these digits, but it's not quite a triple yet. And really, all we're seeing is that the box is 1, 3, 5, 6, 7. So that's actually not that interesting. We were saying 2, 3, 5, 6. I think this can be any of those. Okay. Is anything interesting about... So the other thing I'm going to do is I don't trust that I respected all my corner marks because I always make that mistake. So I'm just going to look at every corner mark that I've got. So these 5s and 9s, I'm going to look at the other cell, make sure it's not 5, 9. I'm going to look at the rest of the column, make sure I didn't put a 5 or 9. Right? We're just going to really quickly go over that. We got the 1, 2, 4, 5 here. I have that marked up. No 1s in this column. No 2s in this row. No 5s in this row. Okay. Just really just quickly double checking that there isn't an obvious disrespect to my corner mark. Here we go. So I had the 1s corner marked here, and I put a 1 here, and that's really important. This shouldn't have been 1. So the 1s were here because of the row. This row claimed the 1s. I didn't have this marked at the time. When I went back and remarked it, I didn't notice these 1s. So that's not a 1. This is a 6, 9 pair. I no longer need the 9 corner marks, and I like to clean it up when I can, because the 6, 9 pair does more than what the 9 corner marks would have done, because it removes 6 and 9. And I can see that with my own, I can easily see this 6, 9 pair. I'm very trained. I've very much trained my brain to see pairs like that. If you're not as trained, I don't know, maybe marking the 6, 9 like that could remind you, but I don't know. I thought it feels like clutter to me. Anyway, so this is a 1 because it can't be 6, 9 anymore. It's the only place for 1 in the column as well. We can clean up all these 1s. I notice this is now down to 3, 4, 6, right? So we can just mark that. We also mark that 6 is in one of these two and 4 is in one of these two. I'll get back to these 1s because they're red. I want to remember that these 4s point in here, removing this from being 4. Because in this box, 4 is now limited to these 2 cells, which means this can't be a 4. In fact, that was probably true earlier as well, and I didn't notice it. Yeah, it was. It was a crossing on the 7, 8 that I missed. So I missed a lot of things, even though I went slowly and explained, and that that happens. Anyway, 4 in this box now goes here. Now that displaced a 5. 5 in this box now goes here. I am going to clean up this 1 over here. This row is down to 3, 6, 9, so we can mark that up. Cool. This is not 1 or 2, so we already know it's interesting because this is down to 4. Let's think about what the box needs, though. Oh no, it's down to 5. Sorry, I missed this. But anyway, let's think about what this needs. Can't be 1, 2. It could, in fact, let's just do the whole column. Okay, sorry. As I'm looking at interesting cells, I look around and sometimes I just change my mind and go, okay, this column's down to 4. Let's think about it. So we need 2, 3, 5, and 6. This can be any of 2, 3, 5, 6. This can't be 2 or 5, so this is only 3, 6. This can't be 5, so this is 2, 3, 6. Okay. In fact, 5 in this column is limited to these 2. Oh yeah, okay. So remember when I said when you corner mark into 2 cells, look at other boxes to see if they line up. And yes, the 5s are agreeing over here, the same 2 rows. So really what we're going to ask is, where does the 5 go in this row? And the answer is not here, not here, not here, right? We already knew it wouldn't be in this box or this box, so we had corner marks avoiding that row in both boxes, right? So we really just look at the box that they aren't in. We know it's going to end up in one of those 3, and this corner mark tells us it's only here. So that's a 5, that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 9. It finished the whole box. Just noticing that these 5 lined up. That's a 3, that's a 5. We can now place the 5 here as well. We get our 6, 3. This is down to a 1, 7 pair. This box, let's look at the consequence to this box. I know we've got a lot of red marks, but we can only look at one thing at once. This row is finished. What do we need? We need the 6. And again, we'll follow up in a second. This is down to 2, 9. So now we just look, and my red marks are telling me this is, at this point, there's so much going on. The red marks are helpful in reminding me what I still need to follow up on. If you aren't using the red marks, or you'd prefer, when you get stuff, you can like highlight it or something and go, okay, I need to come back and remember I got that. Or just rescan. But anyway, we get this box finished. This is 3 and 2. And I think we've cracked the puzzle at this point. 4, 6, and 3. That's not 3, that's not 3. And I'm mostly just focusing on places where I go, okay, I can get a bunch of digits if I focus on this. So I get the 3 and the 2 here. I get my corner mark 1 resolved. We get this whole row finished, right? This is a 6, 9 pair. We know this is finished for the column or the box. It's a 4. I look at the consequence of that 4. We see that these can't be 4, so 4 in this box is placed. It's the final 4. This is 1, 6, 1, 6, 9. I see we have the 6 and the 9 here. I'm just going to fill this out, though. Oh, actually, 6 is in the column, which I didn't see. So that places the 6 here. That makes this a 1 and a 9. That places the 9 and the 3, finishes that row. This row should be finished. It's a 1, and it just, at this point, just plunk digits as you go. That's a 6. We get the 6 here. We get the 9 and the 6. That gets us the 9 and the 1. We get our 2, 9 up here. Just low-hanging fruit that I already have marked. This box needs a 3, which goes here, and it needs a 7. That places this 7. Final 2 digits are 2 and 3, and we're done. All right. So I know that in a video saying how to speed up your solves, you wouldn't expect the video to be 50 minutes long. But unfortunately, in order to explain the things going on in my head, there's a lot going on all the time. I hope this was helpful. Every once in a while, I will do a longer solve like this, where I really rigorously explain everything that's going on. I think we covered, you know what's interesting? We didn't get a single pair or triple of interest. No naked pairs, no naked triples, but we covered a lot of the interesting techniques like pointing and claiming, especially. Hidden singles, naked singles, that sort of thing. So interesting puzzle. I don't think it was that hard. I think that the 50 minutes is not indicative of the difficulty here. I think if I had done my normal thing of scanning rows, columns, boxes that are 4 or fewer as I go, I didn't want to introduce that in this video where I was explaining kind of a more systematic method, but I do tend to jump around a bit. And what you're going to find is that you'll do the systematic method, and then you'll start getting the hang of it, and you'll start seeing these things so quickly that you're going to be like, well, if I jump down here, I'm going to get a bunch of stuff. So why don't I do that? Or, oh, I'm going to skip ahead and I see that there's this part, even though I'm not there yet. And then you just have to get good at winding back and going, okay, now that I'm done seeing those really low-hanging fruit, interesting things, let's rewind and make sure that I didn't miss anything obvious because I skipped ahead. So I think it's important it's kind of like doing scales, right? When you're learning to play piano, you got to do the scales before you can play the Mozart, right? You got to learn where your fingers go and what you're looking for and train your brain on what you're trying to find. So I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to label it with some title so that everyone knows it's a special solve. And of course, if you enjoyed this, you want to see learn more about Sudoku, why not leave a like, subscribe, and kind comment below.